Breaking news exclusively from Blue Eye Media. Now, here is freelance reporter Adam Mockler.
At one point, Marjorie Taylor Greene was Donald Trump's most loyal ally. Now, she is calling for the 25th Amendment and for Trump to be removed from office after he called for a whole civilization to be blown up tonight. He said, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." Now, Republicans in the media are having trouble defending this. Some aren't even trying to defend this. Listen to Republican Ron Johnson, a senator from Wisconsin, who said, listen, I hope that Trump does not start hitting civilian infrastructure. At least this guy has some sort of moral clarity about this specific situation.
I am hoping and praying that President Trump really is bluster. I do not want to see us start blowing up civilian infrastructure. I do not want to see that. We are not at war with the Iranian people. You know, we are trying to liberate them.
Honestly, Senator Ron Johnson got down to the heart of the issue in just a 15-second clip. Donald Trump's promise at the start of this war, his promise to the Iranian people was liberation. The impetus of this war back in January was Donald Trump saying the Iranian people should go free themselves from an oppressive regime. The Iranian people went out into the streets and tens of thousands were killed. Even though Donald Trump promised the U.S. would have their back, he did nothing. He stayed silent and didn't say shit for a few months. Then, when February 28th came around, he launched a war that was too late, that didn't have any clear objective, and has now harmed the Iranian people more than helped them. After Donald Trump started this war, thinking it would be like Venezuela, where you can just cut off the head of the regime and the body would fall in line, he realized, wait a minute, this is not Venezuela. The IRGC is much more entrenched, and they are going to continue to twist our arm and inflict maximum pain for the maximum amount of time they can in order to teach us a lesson. Then his threats became more and more maniacal and diabolical until Marjorie Taylor Greene had no choice but to call for the 25th Amendment. Just 1 month ago, Donald Trump and other Republicans were quite literally saying this is going to be a regime change for the Iranian people to have their moment of freedom. Now he's threatening not only desalination plants so they'd have no water, not only to bomb more bridges beyond the bridges he's already bombed, but power plants. Now he's saying the whole civilization will die tonight. Let me just really quickly Google the definition of genocide. Genocide is an internationally recognized crime involving acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Okay, so genocide, in short, is trying to destroy an entire ethnic, racial, or religious group and just wipe them off the face of the planet. Well, Donald Trump posted just this morning, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows?" This is just absolute nonsense. In this tweet, he contradicts himself multiple times. His end quote is "God bless the people of Iran," but the beginning quote is "a whole civilization will die tonight." He switches in one sentence from saying he'll probably have to wipe out the Iranian civilization to the next sentence saying there are smarter, less radical people in this very civilization. Just yesterday, he called all of the Iranian people animals and seemed to have no empathy for the idea of wiping them out. The day before that, he said they were close to reaching a deal. So in one breath, they're terrorists. In the next breath, you're negotiating with the people who you called terrorists. It makes no sense. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene clocked this and said, dude, this guy's losing his mind. She said, quote, 25th Amendment. Not a single bomb has dropped on America. We cannot kill an entire civilization. This is evil and this is madness. Now, listen, a few things. First of all, if you appreciate the Adam Mockler feed, make sure you drop a like and help subscribe. We are going to be relentlessly covering this and pushing back on this weird genocidal mania. But secondly, you know the situation is bad when we have moral clarity coming from Republicans who 1 year ago we opposed on about everything. I mean, I still oppose Marjorie Taylor Greene on almost everything. When it comes to Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, if you know his voting record, I oppose him on everything. I'm not trying to praise him as some human being or beacon of moral clarity, but in this situation, he's saying, I do not want to see civilian infrastructure blown up. He seems to understand the absolute horrors of war and what happens when you inflict this type of terror on a civilian population. I want to show you the moment that Representative Mike Lawler, who was on the Foreign Affairs Committee, is asked live on television about Donald Trump's genocidal post, and it was posted as he was on air, basically, so he's essentially forced to respond in the moment. Let me play this clip for you, and let me show you how this plays out.
Okay, the new threat from the president is that a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. You say the president doesn't want to do it. Does being reluctant to end a civilization make it okay?
Again, I don't think we're talking about ending a civilization. The issue. So
you don't
at
believe?
hand
You
is
don't
their,
believe? Are you saying you don't believe? Congressman, do you say you don't believe the president's threat? Do you say you don't believe the president's threat?
Infrastructure. It is their energy infrastructure and their civilian infrastructure, including roads and bridges. That will cripple the Iranian regime and certainly their economy. That is not something we want to do because, as Ron Johnson said rightly, we are not at war with the Iranian people. We want them to be free from this oppression and tyranny that they have lived under for 47 years. But if the president has to take necessary action to strike their energy and infrastructure, that is going to cripple the regime. That is what he.
Okay, I'm sorry to pause it, but this is that type of Republican doublespeak that I absolutely hate, that I'm always trying to push back on when I'm on CNN or doing other debates. He's saying a fundamentally different thing than Donald Trump said. He said sometimes we do have to strike some of their military infrastructure. Dude, Donald Trump just said he's going to wipe out an entire civilization. And the host actually clocks this and he says, okay, wait a minute. So you just don't agree with, or you don't believe Trump's threat? Because there's one of two things going on here. Either you believe Trump's threat and you believe that Trump is actually trying to commit genocide on a population, which is awful, or you don't believe Trump's threat, which in and of itself has new problems. Then a new set of problem arises. Like, okay, why is the U.S. president's word not trustworthy? Why is his threat of genocide not taken seriously? Why does he have no leverage? Why is he seen as bluffing by everybody on the planet? Why do even Republicans not believe him anymore? And that means Iran continues to inflict maximum pain on the U.S. It is a no-win situation that Mike Lawler has put in here. Let's continue to listen.
He is talking about.
You don't believe his threat. You don't take him at his word that he will end a whole civilization.
He is talking about the energy and civilian infrastructure. That's what he's talking about, John.
Is he? Have you had a conversation with him about that? He says, never to be brought back again. He just means the bridges and the infrastructure?
Again, John, we're talking about taking decisive action against Iran's energy and civilian infrastructure.
Oof. That was brutal. That was brutal. He has to revert back into his shell talking points where he even admits that civilian infrastructure will be hit. What a sickening ghoul. This brings me perfectly back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene is now calling for the 25th Amendment. Listen, right now, the likeliest path to Donald Trump facing accountability is going to be winning the midterms and then impeachment. The 25th Amendment is something we've been talking about on the show. We've been trying to find pathways on this show. We've floated multiple ideas that we've been following for a while, but it's something that is still reliant on people around Donald Trump and even Republicans. Well, what happens when Republicans, like former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, are now placing pressure for the 25th Amendment? This represents a very real contingency, a very real sect of MAGA supporters. Marjorie Taylor Greene represents a large portion of the America First MAGA base, and when she's calling for the 25th Amendment, when she's saying that Trump has gone so far, he's basically incapacitated, we have breached a threshold. Even people like Alex Jones have been saying this. Other Republicans have been saying this. And listen, if there's anybody in Trump's administration that is going to be against this type of war or genocide, I'm going to say it, it'll likely be the J.D. Vance types. Not for some ideological principle towards, saving Iran, but no. J.D. Vance has been against this war since day one and has only been pretending to support it because he doesn't want to get thrown out. We know this. We know that J.D. Vance was against any sort of war, and he has talked about this. So who knows what's going to happen? I'm going to leave it there. If you appreciate these videos, drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, and peace out.
Can Congress invoke the 25th Amendment and remove Donald Trump? The answer is no. I've gotten this question numerous times today. The 25th Amendment does not give Congress the power to remove the president. To invoke the 25th Amendment, it is the vice president and the Trump cabinet that would have to turn on the president to remove him from office. Now, Congress has a different avenue. It's called impeachment. Congress can impeach, and then the Senate can remove a president. That doesn't happen in an instant. The 25th Amendment can happen quickly. Impeachment does not. Well, there are a lot of people saying and asking me, well, why can't Congress just invoke the 25th Amendment? Because that's not what the 25th Amendment allows. It actually doesn't give Congress any power. So Congress has the power to impeach and remove. The president's cabinet and the vice president, J.D. Vance, have the power to invoke the 25th. So you're actually going to see a lot of members of Congress and people calling for the 25th Amendment today, knowing very well that Vice President Vance won't turn on Trump, when in reality, the call should be impeachment, because that's what they actually have the power to do, rather than 25th Amendment. Spread the word, follow for more.
Follow Blue Eye Media for exclusive insights and breaking news sources from global-friendly outlets that you'll never get from the mainstream cable TV and antenna radio or satellite outlets. Learn how to play the flute of the world and learn the real facts.